Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. Thank you very much for inviting me to pray with you. Let us pray. Almighty Supreme Being, Creator of all, Allah, the omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, infinitely compassionate and most merciful. Thank you for bringing us together as brothers and sisters in diversity to express our gratitude and to ask for your guidance. We are profoundly grateful for the countless blessings you have showered upon us. Through your gift of awareness, you show us that a newborn baby comes to this world in the purest form of love. The baby brings enormous blessings for all. He or she widens and deepens the hearts of not only the family members, but also all of us. As a baby, we all come here to learn, to love, to grow, and to contribute. Things happen as baby continue to grow. The environment, society, government, institutions, and family all make impacts. And sometimes we all carelessly pollute and corrupt the purest form of love. This is how babies learn the division, which creates the hate and negativities. If we, the human beings, are teaching this divisiveness, we certainly are fully capable of stopping it and helping each child to grow up to its full potentials, to be a loving, caring, compassionate, and contributing member of our society. When we harm a baby, we are directly harming ourselves by eliminating the love, the awareness, and the positive contributions that the baby brought here with him or her to enrich all of our lives. In a community where people of all backgrounds and all walks of life are willing to sit together side by side and are ready to accept and value each other's as a gift to one another, then we are open to learning from each other's ways. We can talk, have dialogue, exchange ideas with respect, and learn to work, play, eat, sing, cry, laugh, and pray together. By doing this, we overcome our fear of the unknown and find our common ground. We bond, grow together to be a richer, blessed, and peaceful community. When people of diverse community work together for the benefit of all, true peace permeates our hearts. In the process, all barriers break down. We become one human family. What happens to one affects us all, whether we realize it or not. We are grateful to you, Allah, for our diverse community and our elected officials. We pray for the well-being and wisdom of our City Planning Commission members. We appreciate them for what they do for us and their willingness to listen and strive to improve the quality of our community. Please continue to help them and guide them so that they will know the true needs and aspiration of our citizens and strive to serve us accordingly with the value of diversity. I earnestly request you to help us to use our natural resources wisely so that we may strive together to make a peaceful and prosperous future for all, where our community, San Angelo, Texas, may become an example to the rest of the world. We pray to you, our Creator. Please give us the knowledge, the wisdom, and the courage to be curious, to be open to learning, and to understand one another more. And please give us your guidance and help us to have more compassion and love for each other. I invite each of you, my brothers and sisters, let us join together to honor our Creator God by serving humanity. Wishing each of you a blessed holiday season and a prosperous new year filled with good health, happiness, and lasting peace. May you always be surrounded with love, compassion, and peace. May God bless the whole world. Amen.
Flag of the United States of America.
Testing.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to now move to the consent agenda. The commission may request for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for presentation and public comment. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be considered in one vote. We have the consideration of approving the November 13th Planning Commission regular minutes, and that's pretty much it. So do I have a motion? Okay, Ryan made the motion. Travis seconded. All in favor? Aye. All right. Moving down to regular agenda, subdivision plats. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council.
Good morning, Hillary Bucher, Senior Planner. I'm here to present Ramirez Edition, Section 1. This is a final plat of approximately 1.5 acres. The address on the home that is on kind of the northeast side of the property is 401 West 37th Street. It's at the intersection of West 37th and Sprague Street, RS1 zoning, neighborhood future land use, SMD2 Tom Thompson, the Riverside neighborhood. So this proposed final plat is dividing unplatted parcels into 2 platted residential lots. They are requesting a variance from Chapter 9.3V and 10.3A1 and 10.3A2 of the subdivision ordinance to allow West 37th Street and Sprague Street urban local streets to maintain 36-foot width in lieu of 36-foot with a 4-foot sidewalk or 40-foot, and to allow West 37th Street to maintain a 47.5-foot right-of-way in lieu of the required 50. We are recommending approval of the variances. The current streets do not pose a safety risk. They're an established neighborhood with platted lots. They're all kind of a rural setting, even though it is RS1. The existing streets and configuration already service the area, and granting the variance does not vary any other provisions. So staff recommendation is to approve the final plat subject to 4 conditions of approval. Copy of the certification of taxes paid, dedicate West 37th Street right-of-way or obtain a variance, improve West 37th Street and Sprague Street or obtain a variance, and make the water and sewer connections to the new lot. We also approve the variances that were requested. I can read the conditions into the record if you would like. Does anyone have any questions?
No, ma'am. Any public comment?
Morning. Herb with SKG. I hardly ever get to talk to y'all anymore, but I could answer any questions you might have on this one.
Any questions for her? No, sir. Thank you. Any more public comment? There being none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Ryan made the motion.
I'll second.
Mark seconded it. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, we are rolling. Okay, now we're down to the first replat of Lot 1, Block 1, Section 3, the crossings.
So this is a replat of 4.284 acres. The address that is temporarily associated with is 1315 The Crossings Avenue. It's at the intersection of Ben Ficklin and the Crossings Avenue along the highway frontage of 87. The zoning is a PD, so it's PDO 201, Commercial Future Land Use, SMD 1, Tommy Herbert, and Country Club Neighborhood. So the proposed replat is splitting out lots 3 and 4 out of the originally platted Lot 1, and they are requesting a variance from the subdivision ordinance to allow Ben Ficklin Road, an urban minor collector, to maintain a 24 width in lieu of a required 50 foot. I'm sorry, the variance, we're requesting denial of it. The current street is in need of repair and expansion, and the additional width that they will be installing will be located at an intersection, so it won't create a regular jog mid-block. The existing streets probably need to be repaved as well. The configuration does not currently serve the area, and so staff is recommending approval of the replat, subject to 6 conditions of approval. Copy of the certificate of the taxes paid from the appraisal district, provide septic system details to Tom Green County, provide plans and installation of water service to the new lots, establish water service connections and accounts, improve Ben Ficklin Road or obtain a variance, and a drainage study if increased impervious area. Staff is recommending denial of the variance to allow Ben Ficklin an urban minor street or minor collector street to maintain 24 in lieu of the required 50. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions? No, ma'am. Public comment.
Good morning, Russell with SKG. On the recommendations of the conditions of approval, item number 3, we would ask that that be deferred. Typically for water service for commercial, we don't know what size or where it's going to be with commercial. We could put something in today, and whenever they decide and know what's going in there, it could be in the wrong spot, wrong size. So this is something that is been dealt with in the past, is kind of back again, so we'd kind of like that one to go away. And then for Ben Ficklin Road, this area is subject to a PD zoning district, and that PD zoning has a 75-foot buffer zone along Ben Ficklin Road, and as part of that, it does not allow access onto Ben Ficklin Road. So this lot in this replat does not get to really fully enjoy Ben Ficklin as you would expect a lot that abuts it to. And so because of that, we are requesting the variance. Although Ben Ficklin is an adjoinder, it really does not serve this tract because we do not get to access it. And then Ms. Bucher spoke about the maintenance of it, that it does need to be repaved. Repaving and maintenance is not a developer-required, necessitated improvement. That is a public project, if you will, and a public demand. So, you know, even if we do have to widen Ben Ficklin, we do not maintain or repave the existing portion of it. So, would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So the number 3, you're just actually asking to postpone that, not to delete it.
Well, ultimately, to delete it, it's something that is always done as part of the building permitting process. For commercial buildings.
We're just postponing it, though, for...
Ultimately, yes. Postponing it to whenever when a building
know what's
goes in
going in
there,
there.
we know what's going to be there. That's the way we've always done commercial.
Okay.
Residential, we always do water and sewer services. Commercial, we don't.
Okay. John?
Russell and I had spoken about, Russell Gully and I had spoken about this previous to this meeting, so I contacted Engineering Services. This is some of their standard comments, and they were not able to make it to the meeting, but they were okay with us deferring that to the time of building permit.
Good deal. Any other public comment? Okay, so any other questions before we take a vote? Nope. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion then.
Make a motion to approve it, striking number 3 and allowing the variance.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we had Sammy made the motion and Joe seconded it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so we have 4-2, and that will be Ryan and Travis in opposition. Okay, and we're actually not striking that, so to speak, right? I mean, we're just deferring it to whenever they actually build something there.
Yeah, I think they already have their language. I think,
Okay.
they've spoken about
Very
it.
good. Okay. Moving on. Replats of lots 25 to 27 and parts of lots 21 to 24 and 28 Fort Concho River lots.
Good morning, Christina Heredia with the Planning Department. I am presenting the replat of Fort Concho River lots. It is located off of Rio Concho and here, and then Baker Street here. This here is the convention center, so it's not too far from us right now. It is a total of 12.314 acres. It is zoned RM-1. However, there is a little section right here that is zoned RS1. I'm sorry. It's in single-member district number 3, Fort Concho neighborhood. So here is the proposed replat as well as the current site plan that we have. It is showing access off of Rio Concho, and that is something that is currently being worked on right now. We did send out public notifications. 17 notices were sent out. We have received 1 in favor and 2 in opposition. We are recommending approval of the replat. There is no variances that have been requested. There are 7 conditions of approval. Briefly, those are a copy of the tax certificates. We are requesting sidewalks be built adjacent to Rio Concho, as well as Baker Street. Rio Concho, we're asking for them now. Baker Street, we are asking for when development occurs down there and they need access. We are asking for a drainage study, if the impervious surface changes, installation of water and sewer mains. The fire department is going to require a fire department access, most likely off of Baker, but that will happen during the site plan, as well as fire hydrants. 6 and 7, I have underlined here some wording that we changed this morning, so it's different from your staff report. Originally, we were going to offer a access easement through, there's a small, there's a little section right here of city-owned property they were going to get an access easement through. That may not happen, and so I have changed the conditions of approval to read, if an access easement is granted, then you would need to provide us with the correct information rather than completely striking them. That is also in the actual comments, which I can read into the record if you would like. Okay, and then this completes my presentation. Do you have any questions for me?
Questions? Public comment.
Good morning, Russell with SKG. On item 2A, we would ask that be deferred to the building permit portion of it, also kind of tied to this entrance discussion, negotiation that's kind of occurring at this time. We're working with the city and with the adjacent landowner there to that, trying to figure out how we get access onto this property. So a sidewalk going now could be moved or torn out or torn up as part of the construction process. We ultimately do agree, absolutely, there does need to be a sidewalk there. The developer of the project's all for that sidewalk. We just want to make sure we can kind of do it as part of the construction of all the improvements there in-house. And then also the water and sewer improvements, we'd like those tied to the building permit phase portion of it also. We're in the design, that's all being put together. We've had conversations with the city, and so that's all being worked on. We just like that tied there too as part of the building phase as well. And then the city is addressed 6 and 7 that we had questions about, which ties it all together. So be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Russell?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And John, you're...
Yeah, I think we're okay with that. The one thing I would add is that in this case, I don't think we would strike those requirements, but that we would add the statement that they can be deferred until the development.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Harry Thomas. Just want to make a quick comment. On this particular project, the original entrance was going to be off of Baker Street, and there were concerns from some of the citizens up there from a congestion standpoint. And so I convinced the developer to try to take a look and put it on Rio Concho, and that's where we are today, just so that people know from a history standpoint.
Right, thank you, sir.
Christina, you mentioned that there were letters that you received from some of the surrounding properties. I can't find copies of those. Do you have copies of those that we could see?
I do. One of the letters.
I'd just like to understand what the
Right.
opposition is.
The first letter is in the staff report. The second letter I didn't receive until Friday afternoon. So I emailed it to you guys separately, but I have a copy of it right here.
The one I have.
That's the one that I emailed to you guys on Friday. That's from number 4 right here. Page 7 of the staff report has the other letter.
Thank you, I found it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I believe they're here today as well.
Okay, great. Any more public comment? All right, there being none, do I have a motion? Ryan made a motion. Do you want to defer?
Second.
Okay.
Deferment's requested by SKG.
Okay, so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Sammy seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, 6-0. Okay, rezonings. City Council has final authority for approval of rezonings. A, Z 17-16 Bowles.
Excuse me, Christina Heredia with the Planning Department again. This is for a rezoning on a property located at 2616 South Bryant. The property is owned by Bowles Heating and Air. There are several units and they rent out space, they lease out space to some of those units. Currently, it's single-member District 3 Rio Vista neighborhood. It is currently zoned office commercial. As you can kind of see here, there are multiple, if I were to pull it out further, you would see that there are multiple spots where, as development occurs, we'll have small commercial zoning mixed in with the residential. The future land use of the entire strip is for a neighborhood center, and we are requesting a zone change today to neighborhood commercial. So here's a few photos. This is the front of the property. Across the street, there is some more residential, and then as you look north and south, you can see residential as well. So we are recommending approval for several reasons. The first is that the future land use is neighborhood center. Neighborhood commercial zoning fits in better than an office commercial. It also allows for retail uses that the applicant currently does not enjoy. There is a conditional use in place on the property that was done in 2002 that allows for very specific retail use of personal services such as a hair or nail salon. We had the option of expanding that conditional use to allow more retail services, but overall we felt a zone change would be a better fit for the applicant as well as for the future needs of the city. We do feel that it is compatible with the surrounding area as well. So I sent out 21 notices. We did receive 1 in favor and 1 in opposition. And we are recommending approval of the zone change from office commercial to neighborhood commercial zoning districts. And that's it, if you guys have any questions for me.
Any questions? No, ma'am. Public comment.
Guy Bowles, and on this property, I had a fortune teller decide to occupy a spot, but she couldn't foretell that there would be a problem with the zoning, so, nor could she foretell that she's no longer there. But the one letter in opposition was because the people that were renting it were sleeping there. And so we caught them doing that, and they're no longer there because of that. I told them in no uncertain terms that was not permissible. At any rate, I did drive along the South Bryant from Knickerbocker Road to San Jacinto Street, or the Arroyo. And there is 17 houses on both sides of the streets, total 17 houses. There's also 17 vacant lots along that strip. There's also 8 current commercial buildings or uses on that strip. So, you know, it's headed in a commercial use direction. And what we're asking for is just a little wider application of the current building. But, you know, in a larger scale, you know, I think asking people to have to go through this process each time one of those lots is sold and is probably detrimental to further development, because a lot of people want to buy a lot. Well, it's not zoned right. Well, you can go get it zoned. Well, you know what? I'll just go buy a lot somewhere else. And so I really think that entire strip ought to be considered for commercial zoning, because that is the direction it's going. You know, that's neither here nor there to me because I only own the one lot. But I do think, you know, business friendly, as the mayor said, would be appropriate to look at changing that. I know that's not going to happen today, but I think it's something that might ought to be looked at. At any rate, you know, that's all I know about it. So if there's any questions.
Any questions for Guy?
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sir.
Any other public comment? There being none, do I have a motion?
I'll second it.
Mark made the motion. Which one of you seconded it?
I'll second it.
Okay,
That's fine.
Travis seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, 6-0.
Thank you.
All righty, so we're gonna move down to conditional uses. We do have quite a few conditional uses, so when we get to the public comment, we're going to have the clock going for 3 minutes apiece, please, just so we can move through them. Conditional uses, the Planning Commission has a final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. The first one is CU 17-02, Martinez.
All right, good morning, Planning Commissioners. Jeff Fisher, Senior Planner with the City of San Angelo. So our first conditional use today is 0.417 acres southwest of Shady Point Circle Drive and Knickerbocker Road, SMD number 1, Tommy Hebert in the Nasworthy neighborhood. So this is a request for conditional use for a short-term rental. You may be familiar with this. Back in March of this year, the applicant had come forward and had made the application. She decided to postpone the item at the time, so it never actually got to the commission, to give time to allow the residents to respond and determine how she wanted to move forward. She's now come back, and we're going to consider this today. So the future land use is neighborhood, and the zoning is single-family residential RS1. So this is Shady Point Circle, and if you drive down there, there's about 300 feet, quite an extensive driveway. They have about 10 feet wide for caliche parking. The existing carport has one parking space that's paved underneath it. The second one is not paved. Now, we will be making, as per consistent with other approvals, a condition that either the applicant has to have the second parking spot paved with a paved condition all the way to the street, a paved driveway, or she can apply for a variance or an administrative adjustment. So obviously that's a quite lengthy street there, but she'll have the opportunity at a later date. This is the existing dwelling on the property, and it backs out onto Lake Nasworthy. There's a boat dock back here as well and some amenity space. So these are the photos looking south. There's also a small park across the street to the west, predominantly single-family homes backing out onto the lake. So like I say, you have that long driveway with the crescent arm extending from there. There's an accessory building, and then as you drive further south, you get to, further east, you get to the home. There's the carport. There's the one spot that's paved, and there's the other spot that's unpaved. There's the boat dock. So staff is recommending approval. And as you know, last year, council brought in the short-term rental amendment to the zoning ordinance, section 406, which said that you can't have any other short-term rentals within 500 feet, and the road has to be at least 30 feet wide. This road is not. There was a clause in there that said, however, if they've been paying hotel occupancy tax to the state and the city prior to that date, which Ms. Martinez has, they can apply for the conditional use. So that's where we're at today. We believe the impacts would be minimal, given that the properties have direct access to Lake Nasworthy, and they're quite lengthy sized lots. We believe it's consistent with the zoning ordinance amendment and the zoning ordinance in general that council passed, complies with all the zoning provisions except for that one additional space, which they'll have to make a decision on. It's compatible with the surrounding area, we believe, as well, surrounded by other lakefront properties, very close to Mary Lee Park and other recreational amenities in the marina. No anticipated effects on the natural environment. This is a very large site. It's predominantly landscaped or grass out there, so any additional paving would be minimal. We believe there's a community need. It is in the Lake Nasworthy secondary plan as well, which talks about recreational development as well as the comprehensive plan. And the development patterns, given the length of the driveway on the property, we don't believe there'd be any spillover parking anticipated on the street. So for those 6 criteria, we believe they've been met. Now, 13 notifications were mailed out. To be consistent with past and also to be transparent, the previous application in March that was postponed, there were 6 letters in opposition. We wanted to make sure those were included on the record, so I've provided with you those. There were, as well as the applicant letter in favor, and then there were 4 more letters in favor. So in total, 5 in favor, 6 in opposition. 2 of those in favor were outside of the 200-foot ring but had found out about the meeting, so all those letters are with you today. Staff recommendation is to approve short-term rental conditional use in the single-family residential RS1 zoning district, subject to the 6 conditions of approval in your staff report. I'd be happy to read those into the record. And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you. And as Jeff pointed out, we're not voting for short-term rentals. That ordinance is already out there. All we're doing is on this one specific property, we're deciding if it's appropriate for the area, okay? So I want to be sure we clarify that.
So Jeff, just understand, it does meet all the guidelines set forth by the city council, other than the parking, the additional parking.
That's correct.
So it checks off all the boxes otherwise.
That's correct.
Okay, and they had been paying for the hotel motel tax
They have.
previously?
Yes.
Okay.
Since about, I think, spring 2015. So I have the rest of those receipts here, and I provided the ones just before that September cutoff date with you in your staff report.
Okay, any other questions for Jeff before we get started? All right, I think we've got the story. All right, we're going to start with public comment. Whoever would like to be first.
My name is Jeanette Sloper. I'm reading a letter sent by Rick Ellis, who is traveling. He owns the property at 1818 Shady Point Circle. I own and reside at the property located at 1818 Shady Point Circle Drive, which is within 150 feet of the property, applying to become a short-term rental. I oppose short-term rentals in my neighborhood and urge you to vote no on this conditional use permit. Upon retiring from military service, I chose to make San Angelo my home, carefully seeking a neighborhood to settle into. Shady Point Circle Drive was ideal for its lack of through traffic, commercial properties, and quiet. Things have since changed. A hotel moved in. This hotel created a disruption in the neighborhood. The strangers that are the hotel's guests use the community park as a parking lot for their vehicles and trailers, have vandalized neighbors' properties, and fired gunshots from the property. The peace, quiet, and tranquility I expected when brought in a residential zone neighborhood changed. I'm very concerned with the number of strangers that now come in and out of my neighborhood. The property appears to be rented all the time. This hotel has been in operation long enough to know it does not conform to the ideals and lifestyle of the neighborhood, and the owners do not maintain control of their guests. Please vote no to the conditional permit. Respectfully, Rick Ellis.
Thank you, ma'am.
I have no idea. We're kind of getting off track again, aren't we? I mean, we're not deciding whether I mean, they've met
No.
the conditions. That's what we're
Yeah,
talking about.
But he has the right to speak
Yeah,
and say what
yeah.
he has
Yeah.
to say about the property, so.
Okay.
But you're right, we're not voting as far as
Right.
are they acceptable or not, but.
Let me clarify one thing. While you're not voting on short-term rental, whether or not they should be allowed, you are able to look at each individual location and look at things like traffic and parking and impact on neighbors.
Right.
So it's not if they check all the boxes, you must approve it. You can
Right.
still look at each individual case and approve or deny.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kim Lebo, and I oppose this conditional use permit. I live at 1806 Shady Point, which is 2 houses away. There's about 60 feet separating us. I've tried to come to peace with the hotel as a neighbor, and I thought since all the controversy and neighborhood strife over the last couple of years, things would get better. The owners of the property have stated numerous times that they vet their guests and that they only rent to nice, respectful families. It is now proven this is not the case, nor is there a guaranteed way to vet. Since the property has been used as a hotel, there have been loud parties. If you remember that video that went around, that was on this property. The police, the lake police, and code compliance all have been called on this property. There have been gunshots fired at this property. There's been fireworks that have been set off, and not just on the 4th of July, but throughout the year. There have been vehicles parked illegally. There's been property damage to surrounding neighbors. My mailbox was actually knocked down by a backing up of trailers out of this property. And my property isn't the only neighbor that has sustained damage since this has become a hotel. The vacationers have been very safe and disrespectful on the water. They don't comply to the wake zone, and they're speeding in and out of there all the time. Based off the hotel tax receipts and HomeAway stats, there have been over 50 different people in and out of that property. If you can let that sink in for a minute, you having a neighbor that has 500 people in and out. In this last year, it's been over 300 different people. That doesn't include any functions that the Martinezes have or their friends and family have at the property. This is all strangers in and out. As Mrs. Martinez had stated in her letter, they've installed cameras. Actually, several of us neighbors have installed cameras just because of this specific property and the strangers it brings in. And Anna stated that they will review their cameras as needed. Unfortunately, that is after the fact. The problem is when you need to review your camera's footage, it's too late. Doesn't it speak volumes when all the property neighbors and the property owner of the short-term rental have to install cameras because of the activity of one specific property? The Martinez can never truly vet who will be on the property, and it's been proven on multiple occasions. According to the Texas Hotel and Lodging Association, there are 44 hotels with over 2,900 rooms available for people to stay in San Angelo when they want to visit. Please do not allow a hotel in our residential neighborhood. The past history of the short-term rental clearly shows a conditional use permit should not be granted for this property. And I did put those pictures, a couple of pictures of some damage. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Terry Covert. I live at 1808 Shady Point Circle Drive. This is directly next door to this property at 1810. I used to have a wonderful neighbor, but they moved to a larger house and they kept 1810 Shady Point Circle Drive as a rental. There were some issues with renters when the home was a long-term rental, but they were workable. We respected our neighbors. We made concessions on both their part and my part, and we all settled in together in the neighborhood. At some point, the owners decided it would be more lucrative to use the property for short-term rental, and it would allow them to use the property when they wanted to. That sounded like a great idea to me when they first mentioned it. After the first several renters were there and then gone, I found that it was not pleasant living or having at least one new set of neighbors, sometimes two, every single week. I found that they don't really care about getting along with people that live in the neighborhood because they're going to be gone in a few days, and it really doesn't matter to them. riding jet skis at full speed right next to the houses in a no-wake zone, nearly running people down that are swimming in front of their homes, jumping off the docks and cussing almost continuously, shooting guns from the yard to the island, being loud and disrespectful, are some of the things that have occurred since the house next door essentially became a hotel. That's not to say there aren't plenty of transients that have come and gone that you would never even know they were there. They're quiet, they're respectful, but it is different from day to day, and I never know who will be looking across my fence and into my yard and into my house. Who are they? What do they do? What is their background? What do they care about? They'll never be my neighbor because they will be replaced in a day or two by several more random strangers. Besides the emotional aspect of never knowing who might be next door, there is also the issue of city services, such as the grinder. I'm sure you know Lake properties have grinders that move sewage from the homes to the sewer main at the street. There are 2 houses per grinder, and mine is shared with the property requesting this permit. There are serious issues with the grinders, including sewage, gases, and actual sewage backup into the home when it is overused and can't keep up with the demand. My house is closer to the grinder, and it sits slightly lower than the property requesting the permit. I've had an inordinate number of problems with the grinder when there are large groups over 6 staying at the house. There are many times when there may be only a few people staying there, but additional people come over and use the property, and it tends to overwork that system. It causes serious issues, which would be resolved if there was a long-term renter in there or if the homeowners move back. Since the property has become an STR, I've had vandalism of my property, as have other neighbors who opposed allowing STRs in neighborhoods. I have filed a police report on that vandalism in the hopes that it would be further issues. I request that each of you vote no to this permit request. Please help us turn our neighborhood back into the quiet, respectable, and residential place it used to be. Thank you all.
Other public comment?
Good morning. My name is Debbie Powell. I do not live within the 200-foot radius, but I am in favor of the approval of the Martinez's application. The infamous video with the cursing, et cetera, occurred a year and a half ago prior to the enaction of the ordinance. I personally know the Martinez's have taken great strides to try to not have any incidents at this property. They don't want to disturb the neighborhood. And in fact, the camera that she installed was so that she can check and see if somebody's out there partying, and she will call them and tell them knock it off. Within the 1 year that the ordinance has been here, she's taken a lot of efforts to improve. I would also point out that this application is good for 1 year, and that next year she would have to come back if this one's approved. And so you would have an opportunity after, again, 1 year to see if there were any issues. Anything that happened prior to the enaction of the ordinance, that should be out the window now, because she's taken a lot of work to try to improve her properties. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment?
My name is Richard Martinez, and I'm just wondering about the part that she said about the sewer. We got the
Get
grinders.
up a little bit closer to that,
The
Richard.
grinder is located in our property, and I haven't had nothing, come out of it or any odor or nothing. So I don't know what she's talking about.
You have anything else to say? Okay, thank you. Other public comment?
Good morning. My name is Anna Martinez, and we are owners of the short-term rental that we're discussing right now. First, I want to let you know we have worked very, very hard to make this happen. We had numerous complaints when we had long-term renters there. In fact, I had one long-term renter that expressed to me and told me, Anna, did you know you have enemies that live next to you? And I couldn't understand where he was coming from with that. I ignored my long-term renter. That being said, after numerous complaints, I discussed it with my neighbor. And yes, it was in the works for a short-term rental. We did everything at that time to get with the city. What do we need to do? There was not an ordinance in place. And as to what some of the neighbors are talking about right now happened with the long-term renters, not the short-term renters. That being said, once the ordinance was put in place, we did apply for a conditional use. In applying for the conditional use, I then postponed it within 3 weeks after I saw the letters that were coming through. And I said, we are going to make sure we follow the ordinance and make sure we continue doing what is right to the city of San Angelo and for the city of San Angelo. Short-term rentals are in great demand for our city. I had no idea. It is the lake that brings in the tourism. That being said, once the ordinance was in place, again, I postponed it, and I have done everything that we can do to follow the ordinance. I love people. If you know us, you know we love people. We love to welcome the people that stay at our home. They have a high quality of life. And I just, last night I was opening up my mail because I hadn't had time to open it. And I had a person that was a photographer that stayed there, and he sent the most beautiful thank you letter to me in the mail. Just the great memories that they built up. So I just want to tell you, we will continue doing what's right for the city. We will continue abiding by the ordinance. You have no police stats to show there's been any criminal activity at our home, including the 2 neighbors that call the police with the military stay. There was no report done on that. Yes, both neighbors did call the police. The police went over there and told them to quiet it down. So again, let the stats speak. And again, you will have no police reports stating that there's been criminal activity at that home. I do approve short-term rentals, and I'm hoping that the city does welcome our tourism. And no, I think this is more of a control issue and not the government controlling. Thank you. On October the 1st of 2016, there was a military stay, and I did get copies of the police reports. I did find out who called the police, and again, there was no report done by the police. I spoke to a sergeant. What he did express to me is if the police did go out there, he explained to them to keep it down. The military stay did keep it down. And no report was done on it. And I do have copies of that if y'all would like to see
Well,
them.
when did you put the cameras in?
After the ordinance was placed, I put the cameras in. And what that does is actually as people go in and out, it will ring on my cell phone. And this way I can view the camera. It is also, and I have put on the back of the dock, that it is under surveillance. So also, when I screen the customers that come in, I do let them know, by the way, you do have cameras, and this is why. Please respect our neighbors. Please respect our neighbors. This is a sitting ordinance. I'm not asking you to go inside at 10:30 at night, but I'm letting you know now, there cannot be no loud music and no heavy partying. Y'all can fish, keep it quiet, and respect our neighbors. And they have done that. And if I do hear something, believe me, I am on it. And yes, they are quite surprised when they hear my voice over the PA. Has that happened? Once, yes. And I really felt sorry for him. They came in for a big golf tournament at Bentwood. And he told me, I'm sorry, time got away on us, but we're going to go to sleep. Thank you. And it was just 2 people on the dock, and I can hear it very clearly. So, and it says under surveillance, and then right next to the sign it says quiet time between 10:30 p.m. and 7 a.m. It is quiet time. And I actually had the signage made at, All About Signs. And so I posted both signs up there, and they're okay with it, I mean, I explained to them, and like my dad said, one of these days you're going to have somebody out there that's going to say something about the signage that the neighbors have posted up there. I do explain to them. And I thank my neighbors today for taking them down. I really do. They recently took down their signage. I do explain to the people that come over. You have some that have their differences. I understand just because we have our differences, signage should not be put up, but it was, and there's nothing that I can do about it. Please respect our neighbors, because no matter what, I will still love Terry, and she knows it. So anyway,
Okay, thank you. Other public comment? Yes.
Kim Lebo again from 1806 Shady Point. Although there weren't reports made, and despite what everybody says that I'm the ringleader and I'm getting everybody involved, I've never once called the police, but yet I know this year, within the last 12 months, the police, the lake police, and code compliance have all been called. Whether or not reports have been done, I don't know what the police department, and I also know that one neighbor said she called the police told her she needed to call code compliance told her no, call the police. She went back and forth a couple of times with that. So yes, within the last 12 months, the authorities have been called multiple times to the property. And like my mailbox, that was this year as well. Several of those things were within the last 12 months.
Did they take care of the mailbox?
No. And I didn't report that. And in retrospect, I keep thinking to myself, I'm not going to be that person that is calling in all the time.
Yeah, but I think, Kim, now this is just my personal opinion. Probably shouldn't say this, but this is my personal opinion. If they would have ran over my mailbox, because I've ran over some of those mailbox because I'm not the best backer-upper, okay? So, I mean, I am. I'm not very good at that. So I went up and said, hey, I ran over your mailbox. Tell me how much I owe you. So if that happens, I don't care if it was their house or whoever's house. You know, that's respect, and they need to tell you, and they need to fix it.
I would have thought that out of respect, these people would have done that. And I did speak to them. And, you know, I'm not CSI or anything, but it was in a 1 hour period. None of the other neighbors were home. These people backed up 2 trailers out. If you look, there's actually lines that come through so you can tell that's where it came from. And I approached them. And when they were coming in, I approached them, and they're like, it wasn't us, and just backed up. I had to go to work. I came back. They were gone. So it is what it is. But I just wanted to let you know it has been within the last 12 months.
Okay, thanks, Kim. All right, more public comment? I'm not very good at this button, but come along. State your name again, please.
We're directly next door at 1808 Shady Point Circle Drive. And the thing with the grinder, the reason that it does not affect their house is because their house is at this height and mine's at this height. And
Do you each have a grinder on each side?
no, we share the grinder.
Okay, and it's in their
It's-
yard?
Yes, it's always put on one side of the fence or
Okay.
the other. It's right on the fence line, right? Their house is further forward than most houses at the lake. It's grandfathered. It sits right up on the lake. Mine sits further back, and the grinder comes right out by my side door, and it sits lower, and it's closer. So whenever it's not working properly, it affects me. It won't, you know the old saying, stuff rolls downhill? That is what it is.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. All right, any other public comment?
Explain about the mailbox.
Your name again, please, ma'am.
My name is Anna Martinez, 1810 Shady Point Circle. I was made aware of the mailbox after something was posted on Facebook. I am not going to go to Facebook myself. Someone addressed it to me when another short-term rental said, surely this was not your short-term rental. I immediately contacted this beautiful family from Midland, and I showed them what was posted on Facebook. And I said, because I will ask them at the end of this day, did anything happen that needs to be brought to my attention? I felt so bad. She was so nice. She apologized. She says, Anna, your neighbor asked my uncle, and like my husband said, if they would have knocked down a mailbox, wouldn't have they knocked down the mailbox right next to us and not 2 houses down? So they didn't knock down Covert, they did not knock down Barnes's, but, okay, I just don't think you can blame everything on a short-term rental. So when I questioned her, she said, Anna, if we would have done that, we would have notified you. She goes, I am so sorry. And I said, look, this is what has been posted. She goes, we did not do this.
Okay.
And this is a conversation that we had. And she apologized to me and said, I'm so sorry you're having to go through this. And I just said, I just need to know if you did this. Please let me know. I will gladly pay for it. She goes, we didn't.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well,
All right.
I wouldn't put too much stake in Facebook being the end-all be-all of law enforcement. I think, so I wouldn't take that too seriously. If everything was true that was on Facebook, the trash guys, we've done everything. We've ruined the streets. We've ruined every cable thing. Facebook
All right.
is just
Any more public comment?
silly.
All right. There being none. Okay. So questions? Do y'all want to discuss anything? I mean, again.
Yeah, I have one question or comment. We've talked about this on other STRs, the signage. I don't think signage should be allowed in residential neighborhoods for anything, especially this.
So whenever we approve one, we can say like we did last time, there couldn't be signage, right?
Correct.
Just because I'm the same way. It's just like, if it's in a neighborhood, you don't want there to be a 6-foot sign.
Doesn't need to be.
Yeah, so if we're on the same page about signage, do you also mean the warning signs as well?
Yeah, she's not referring to,
No,
Best
no.
Western
On
sign.
the-
She's talking about a little sign on the dock that says
No,
quiet out.
and I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about under the conditions of approval, it allows them to put a sign no larger than 6 square feet on the property. No exterior,
Okay.
except for one unilluminated sign no larger than 6 square feet. I don't think any sign should be allowed
Right, I agree.
that advertises the property.
Absolutely.
The signage within the property is fine. It's just the advertising out front that this is a short-term rental.
Yeah, and this is kind of, again, short-term rentals are so controversial, and I totally understand. I mean, you can see both sides. It's your home and it's your business, basically, and it's very controversial. I think the biggest thing is that you work together on these things, and that because when people come back for the 1 year, I think all of us are going to ask as far as how'd it go? How were the police reports? How was this? How was that? And if you can't do what you're supposed to do, then you have no right to do it. I mean, I think that's the bottom line, and I think that's why the ordinance were set.
Madam Chair?
We haven't taken a vote yet, so you can say your name and speak.
Harry Thomas, just let me make a comment real quickly. Talk about this 1 year. I would suggest that we somehow or other get these police reports, if they're out there, so that when they come back, if you approve this one today, when they come back in a year, you have got all of the information that you need, and instead of saying he said or she said, whatever the case may be, because right now we're hearing that the police may have been called to this particular property, but they made a decision not to do anything or may not even have a report filed. Bottom line is that a lot of times we're working on emotion on these things from both sides. So let's get the facts out before we make the decision. So if you make the decision today to approve this, before you, in 1 year, when these property owners come back, make sure we have all the information. I mean, I think that's where we need to be.
That was going to be my first question. Where are the police statistics and?
Well, we're certainly not going to go pull every police report in town, but I think that it would behoove the opposition to bring them if there are any, right? I mean, you think about presenting evidence. If it's out there, bring it. If
Can
not,
we
you can
postpone this?
Hang on just a second. If you read these letters, for every 2 or 3 complaints that this place is a disaster area, you have neighbors that live across the street and next door saying that this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to the neighborhood. So, and that just speaks to Harry's point. You've got emotion involved in it, and we don't deal with emotion, we deal with fact.
John, as a planning department, could we go to, when we have one of these come up, can we go to the police department and see if there's any reports to be pulled? Is that a possibility?
We could do that, sure.
I know there's a cost involved.
I agree with that. I agree with you.
Because we do want the facts. I mean, we don't want to do something that's wrong. I mean, we don't.
Why don't we start it right here? Can we postpone this till we get those reports? So we know really what's going on, or can we not?
Reports.
There are
I
none.
guess there are none.
We just got done hearing twice that there are.
Well, but do we know that?
No one's brought any.
If I was the opposition, I would have brought reports.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We can't start public comment again. I'm going to give you just a minute because we've already.
Just on the reports, I
Oh,
believe there's
state your
only-
name, please.
Kim Lebo. As I stated earlier, I think there's only one that's filed as a report, but I know for a fact the police have been called out there numerous times within the last 12 months. And, you know, to be able to say, well, let's wait another year and see what happens within the next year. This has been a year since it came out. It has been a year, and it's been proven.
Since the ordinance was approved?
January, I believe.
Yeah, it was January, so it's
Was
been,
it
it's
really?
been 11
My
So
months.
God,
within the
that seems
last
like that
year,
was yesterday.
This stuff has happened. So, but the police don't always write reports for everything.
Can't you tell them or ask them to?
Ask them to
Can't
what?
you ask the police, if you're the one calling the police, can't you ask them to file a report?
Yes, we could get the call sheets, so even if there was found to be nothing in an
Yeah, they
official
can get call
report filed,
sheets. And the website keeps statistics, whether there's a report written or not. There's the PD website keeps statistics for calls to a property.
Because
so-
the other ones that we've had so far, we've not heard about police reports or anything. I mean, I think the last one was because of it being by church was what the problem was. But I don't think that we've had any that have stated that they've actually called police on them and stuff. So I think it's probably advantageous when the next one comes up. If any of y'all are out there that are planning on doing one, the next time it comes up, if you're in opposition, bring your report with you, because otherwise it's just hearsay, okay? All right, other
I
questions?
just have one comment. As much as I can appreciate Mrs. Culver's concern about not knowing who the neighbor's gonna be from day to day, I can also see the strides that Ms. Martinez has made in trying to come in compliance. And
Even before
personally.
there was an ordinance.
Right. So personally, I would like to, I want to vote to approve it, and then it'll come up again next year. And if things have not, progressed, and if they're still having problems, then I'll be the first to vote against it. But
Would you
Commissioners?
be willing to amend your motion to exclude the signage?
yes, I will, absolutely.
Okay, so do you want to state that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept this as written, with the exception of, is it number 4, to omit the signage on the property.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mark to approve it. We have a second by Ryan. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so in a year, just, I know y'all are trying. I know you are. And I know sometimes it's hard with that many neighbors for everybody to keep happy, but that's gonna be something next year that comes up as we're doing these, is that to see if there's been any issues. Okay, so that we only have the problem out there for a short period of time. All right, so the next one is CU 1718 Hoover, public hearing and consider, I only have to say CU 1718 Hoover. Sorry, you
That's
go
okay.
on.
CU 1718 Hoover is a conditional use to allow for alcoholic beverage sales for on-premise consumption. It's 0.379 acres. The addresses currently associated with this property are 1415 through 1425 West Beauregard Avenue, SMD 5, Lane Carter, in the Santa Rita neighborhood. This is the building that currently houses Giz and Hums, if you've ever been down there to look at that. The future land use is neighborhood center, and the zoning is CGCH. So this is a aerial site photo. Joe's Ice House is right there. This is tire sales, and then this is MHMR. So this is a couple of site photos around the property, looking at the front of it, the side. This is the area they currently use for parking. There are a couple of parking spaces up in the front. So the rationale for approval on this is the existing businesses in this area already have alcoholic beverage sales, so there's little impact to the surrounding area. Alcoholic beverage sales are allowed in CGCH with a conditional use, and this is adjacent to a lot of commercial uses and the continuation of existing commercial in West Beauregard. We don't see any effects on the natural environment. There's already alcoholic beverage sales in this area, and these businesses have been there for a long time. So what this conditional use is allowing is an additional business in that same building to go in with alcoholic sales. It provides a logical pattern of development. We sent out 14 notices and received 1 in favor from MHMR. They know that those uses have been in that area for a while and haven't had any problems, so staff is recommending approval of the conditional use to allow for alcoholic beverage sales, on-premise consumption within the CGCH zoning, subject to 2 conditions of approval. The applicant shall work with Permits and Inspections Division to ensure the building meets all the requirements for the occupancy, and the applicant shall ensure that all current parking associated with the conditional use meets the applicable standards per section 511 of the zoning ordinance. Does anyone have any questions?
Are they just bringing their current property under compliance, or there's a new business opening in that building?
There is a new business opening in the east end of that building that would like to sell alcoholic beverage.
You know, if this, this business that's trying to come in, look, so I'm trying to, I mean, obviously I know the property, but, so this business that wants to sell alcohol, is this an on-premise license or an off-premise license? Do we know what they're?
On premise, they're looking to do a kind of a event venue.
Okay, so
It's a venue.
Okay. They have a venue in place there, because I've been to a couple of events in there, but.
He's looking to get his TABC license, and he has CGCH, which does not specifically allow for alcoholic beverage sales. It has to have a conditional use, so.
They've been able to serve liquor, but I don't think they've been able to hold a full, they haven't been able to offer full services or something over there. So I think this is just allowing them to use their venue to the fullest potential.
Any other questions? Any public comment? There being none? Go.
I'll second.
Ryan made the motion. Travis seconded the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, 6-0. Thank you. CU 17-19 Tucker.
Good morning again, Christina Heredia with the Planning Department for the record. This is case CU 1719. It is for a property located at 220 South David Street. It's pretty close to the golf course, single member district number 3, and it is in the downtown neighborhood. Its future land use is that of downtown. And its current zoning is office commercial. It is a residential property that is being sold to a woman, and she wants to continue using it as a residential property. However, there is no conditional use in place. Technically speaking, she could just continue it as a non-conforming use, but she wanted to bring everything into compliance. Here is the front of the property. As you can see, it's clearly a residential house. It's not being used as a business. It's historically been a house, and it's going to continue staying that way. Across the street from it, as well as the surrounding neighborhood. So we are recommending approval. Number 1, there are no adverse impacts. If it continues to stay as a house, there will be no change of occupancy, no additional construction requirements. Household living is allowed in the CO district with a conditional use. That neighborhood is primarily houses. Many of them have been converted into offices, but there is still several in the area that continue to operate in a residential capacity. As such, we do feel it is compatible with the surrounding area. There will be no changes or effects on the natural environment. We feel this meets a community need because it's historically been a house, and it is a healthy mix for the neighborhood to continue as that way. So we did send out 15 notifications, and we received 1 in favor from the adjacent property owner. And with that, we are recommending approval to allow for household living in the office commercial zoning district, subject to the following 2 conditions of approval. The first is that if they did do anything, they would need to get a building permit. And the second is that it's limited to single-family residents. A conditional use for household living does technically allow any type of household living, including an apartment building. So that's why we have this in place. And that is it. Do you have any questions for me?
Questions? No.
Okay, thank you.
Public comment? There being none? Mark made the motion. Sammy seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. CU 1720 Garcia.
Jeff Fisher, Senior Planner. Again, this is conditional use 1720 Garcia. The property is 0.115 acres southeast of North Bell Street and Upton Street, San Angelo, SMD number 3, Harry Thomas's district in the Fort Concho East neighborhood. So this is another, in this case in particular, this is to allow a new bar at this property, on-site alcohol beverage sales. There was a bar on this property in this building before, back on July 27th, 2012. It used to be called Drifters. That had expired. In the case of existing bars that had expired, if it's more than 12 months in between and that use is abandoned, it loses its legal nonconforming status and requires a new conditional use. So that's where we are today. New owner is interested in the property, and if approved today, there would be a new bar in that location. So the future land use is neighborhood center, and the zoning is general commercial, heavy commercial, CGCH. This is a look at the property. So you have an existing building with a rear yard. There are currently 4 parking spaces at the front along Bell Street, and there are 5 spaces at the back. The applicant's proposing possibly 3 new spaces. These spaces here, the 5 spaces here, are caliche, so they don't comply with the zoning ordinance as of today based on a new parking standard under zoning. And at the front, they are paved, but you can only have 2 that directly back out onto the street. They don't have the maneuvering. So we're recommending as a condition of approval, even though a change of occupancy is not required under the zoning, we want to bring it up to standard. So again, the applicant will have the option to implement the condition or not. But depending on how many seats they have, every 4 seats for a bar requires 1 paved parking space. The other issue here is that the parking spaces along the south portion of the property do not have a direct paved access to the street. That's another requirement of zoning. So this 20-foot public alley here would either have to be paved or they would have to pave this driveway and then put in more parking at the back. So again, depending on how many seats the applicant wants, they may have to pave this unless this condition is waived, or they can determine if they want to have less seats and they'll be exempt. I just wanted to point that out. This is looking north. There's an existing pawn shop and some retail as you go along Bell Street. This is a major commercial corridor. This is looking south. West, there's a vacant property here, and this is east at the property. So staff believes the impacts would be minimized. The only issue is there is a home to the east, which acts the rear yard of a house. So they would have to put as a condition of approval a 6-foot-high privacy fence just along the east side of the property. Otherwise, we don't believe there's any impacts. It's a commercially zoned corridor with frontage and a driveway on North Bell Street, so it would meet the zoning ordinance in terms of more retail, commercial, and a bar. Given it's so close to the street, we believe would be compatible. Again, the applicant would be required to provide parking for the bar at 1 space for every 4 seats. So if they keep it at 8 seats right now, they won't have to provide any more parking, again, because those 2 spaces at the front already comply, or they'll have to show a paved access to the street. Number 3, we believe it's compatible with the surrounding area. Again, frontage on Bell Street, a prominent commercial corridor. No anticipated effects on the natural environment. If they come in to do additional pavement, we could do a city inspection, make sure that it complies. Community need, as mentioned, there was a previous bar already in the area. Tom Green County appraisal shows it as a bar since 1959. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but at least we know there was a bar there prior to 2012, so there's already a presence there. The applicant has mentioned in his application most of the bars in the city are downtown, so this would provide another amenity space in the north end for people to congregate. We believe that makes sense. And finally, the development patterns, direct access on North Bell Street and Arterial Street could accommodate any additional traffic. 9 notices were mailed. We didn't receive any back in favor or in opposition. So staff recommends approval of a conditional use to allow alcoholic beverage sales for on-premise consumption in the general commercial, heavy commercial CGCH district, subject to the 9 conditions of approval in your staff report. Any questions or comments?
Any questions?
Jeff, could you go back a few slides to where it shows where the RS1 is in comparison to this particular piece of property? That's just an alleyway between the RS1 and
There's one track.
that one track?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's actually a home that appears to be legal non-conforming that was zoned CGCH up here. So this area in the backyard, they're going to have to put as a condition of approval a privacy fence just on that corner, or excuse me, along the east portion. I think it's about 50 feet, just to screen from whenever you're adjacent to residential zoning or a residential use, because it acts as a rear yard. So there's homes as you go along east, but as you go west, north, and south, it's all commercial.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a quick one, Jeff. As the Bell Street project moves on, do you foresee any? I guess where I'm getting at, to make it quick, is I don't want this business to have to spend any funds on infrastructure or the street or parking and stuff like that. If in 2 years it's a possibility that things could be ripped up, when we start talking about some of that right-of-way issues that's been in the news and things like that, just want to make sure that the Bell Street project is being taken into consideration when we talk about the parking situation, things like that.
I'm not sure if we have engineering staff here, but I did talk to the senior engineer last week. He mentioned that there could be some improvements along there. That shouldn't affect the project. The alley would remain unpaved, so they're in an unfortunate situation there where they don't comply with today's parking standards. So you would have the option to waive that condition if you wanted to, that they don't have to pave the parking. They can use the existing caliche and the existing caliche alley, or you could put that as a condition of approval or a portion of it.
Well, that's why I asked the question, right? So if I'm making sense, right? I don't want anything in 2 years from now to have to be ripped up that was new construction because he's trying to conform, right? Or he or she.
Correct. This is probably a good view of it. So if there was any improvements on the property, that parking area in the front, and there could be a small nick that gets taken off, but again, because they don't comply today, they should have adequate space to provide parking towards the rear and the side. So the front is already paved anyway. So the issue is really the south side and the alley that's not paved. So
Okay.
even if they lost those 4 spaces up here down the road, they'd still be able to comply if this area in the back stays the same or was paved.
Very good. Any other questions? All right. Any public comment?
Hello, Johnny Garcia. I'm the guy that's going to open up this bar. I'm asking you guys to see if y'all can waive this for now, because I know there is construction going to come down through, and I know that they just put a new water system or water line in that alley. And at the time when Jeff went up there to look at it, there was a big hole there, and he didn't know whether it was going to get covered. Well, it did get covered. Now they're supposed to go in and clean up after themselves and do whatever else they're going to do. But in the meantime, if I have to put a parking lot, there's no way I can afford to do something like that on there. You know, they're saying that 4 people for every parking spot. Well, you got the event center downtown, it's whole 800 people. Chavern Tavern next door, 200 people. Fat Boss across the street, 200 people. There's not that many parking spots downtown. People's going to park wherever they're going to park. And there's plenty of parking around this particular bar after hours that, you know, if they come, they come. If they don't, they don't. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public
Just
comment?
throw out one option for your consideration. If your concern is just the timing of that, one option would be to defer, to require the paved parking as we've recommended, but to defer the obligation for that until after the Bell Street project
Right.
is
That's my
completed.
comfort level, and that's kind of where my point was going, but.
So that you could reword the condition to state that.
Okay.
If I understood him correctly, he can't afford it either time. It doesn't make economic sense now or later to do that. Is that correct? Didn't you state that it
Come back up
doesn't
and
make-
state your name again, please, sir.
Johnny Garcia.
didn't you say that it doesn't make economic sense to do it now or later?
No, I mean, later on, after everything is fixed and everything's done, then yeah, we could work around.
I see, okay, I misunderstood you.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All righty.
The way to do it.
Any other public comment? All right, there being none, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with the deferment of the paving until after the Bell Street project is completed.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, so Ryan made the motion, Joe seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, 6-0. All right, moving to C, U 17-21777 Plaza LLC.
Okay, Planning Commissioners, Jeff Fisher, Senior Planner. This is another case similar to the previous one you just heard. There was an existing bar at the corner unit here at the Plaza at Vanderventer, northeast corner of Johnson and Vanderventer. This is the Chalangas Plaza that has about 6 tenants there. So the property owner has applied for a conditional use to legalize not only a bar on that corner unit, but any of these units if they ever want to bring in bars. And the term again in the zoning ordinance is on-site alcohol beverage consumption. So that's what you'd be looking at today. At the northeast corner of Vanderventer and South Johnson in Lane Carter's District Number 5 in the College Hills neighborhood. So the future land use is neighborhood center, and the current zoning is general commercial, heavy commercial. The last bar at the property at that corner unit, 2408, unfortunately lost its legal nonconforming status on July 29th, 2016. The applicant of that unit had come in, unfortunately, after that date. As soon as planning staff caught it, we worked with the applicant and then later the owner to submit this application. This is a close-up of the property. So again, the approval would allow bars across the whole property. These are some photos. So you've got Angelo State University along the west and south of the property. There's also retail commercial as you go north to Avenue N and some apartments to the east. So we've taken that into consideration as well. So this is that last unit. It's this bar owner who's leasing this property is pending this approval today. So that's the LISM bar. So that would go in right away if the conditional use was approved. There's some other uses here. A restaurant at 2424, a grocery store at 2418. This is going east again. A salon at 2424, and a cafe at 2410. We were a little bit concerned about the rear alley, which is used as parking, and they own that piece as well. Late night, if this is open till 2 a.m. on the weekends, having some wall pack lighting and some shielded downward, of course, but having some security lighting back here just in the back as they walk around. So we believe that we're in support of the request for the following reasons. We believe there would be minimal impacts given that there has already been bars at that location. It's close to Avenue N and the ASU campus. The building walls that face the apartment buildings to the east and north are solid walls, so it almost acts as a privacy fence already. We believe it's consistent with the zoning ordinance, the request. There's adequate parking that was already approved in the past. If they do go in to add more bars in the future, as those permits come in, we can relook at the parking situation. But there's a substantial amount of parking, 102 spaces already, so that works. Compatible with the surrounding area, it serves the surrounding neighborhood and the university campus. There is a bar already just northeast of there, Parrot's Head Tavern. So this would just be bringing another venue for ASU students in the surrounding community. And no anticipated effects on the natural environment because the site's already paved. We believe there's a community need given existing bars such as Parrot's Head Tavern in the surrounding area already. And no anticipated change in the development patterns. The lots were already platted, that mall, with direct access onto South Johnson Street and Arterial Road. 8 notifications were mailed out. We have not received any in support or against. Staff recommendation is to approve a conditional use to allow alcoholic beverage sales for on-premise consumption in the general commercial, heavy commercial CGCH zoning district, subject to the following 6 conditions of approval. And that concludes our presentation.
Any questions? All right, any public comment? There being none, do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Mark made the motion, Ryan seconded it. All in favor say aye.
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 All right. Street name changes. City Council has final authority for approval of street name changes. West Houston Hart Expressway Frontage Road.
So we are looking at approximately 1,350 linear feet of what was West Houston Hart Expressway Frontage Road, which is a mouthful. We're looking to change it to Sherwood Way Service Road. This is the little portion, if you've been in front of the new HEB out on Sherwood Way. The old frontage road was reconfigured. So it comes off of the frontage road and then kind of goes by Hunter's Glen in front of the new HEB and then turns to align with the existing Walmart entrance. So staff was looking at it as a use and, how is it really used? We believed it probably was more accessory to Sherwood Way than it was to Houston Hart in its new configuration. So it begins, like I said, at Houston Hart, southwest, then south to Sherwood Way, SMD 6, Billy DeWitt, and the Bluffs neighborhood. It's commercially zoned, and it's commercially future land use and CGCH zoning. This is an aerial, obviously, before all the development happened. I tried to draw it in as best I could to get a representation of it. These are site photos from today, so you can see it coming off Houston Hart, and then where it intersects with Hunter's Glen at the new HEB. The stop sign that turns south toward Sherwood Way, and then we are at Walmart looking north toward the new HEB. So changing the name would clarify the street's name and use for emergency personnel, visitors, and residents so that they don't see it as an accessory to Houston Hart. Again, it acts similar to a service road that is near Oxford Drive. If you can think about where kind of Sonic and Oxford Drive over on Sherwood Way, there's a piece of Sherwood Way that's called this as well. And again, the name would clarify the use and avoid confusion. So we mailed out 2 notices. We had one in favor, and we didn't hear back from the other one. So staff is recommending approval of the street name change to Sherwood Way Service Road. Does anyone have any questions?
This isn't going to really affect anybody since there's nobody that has this address or anything.
That's
that
correct.
has to
We are not
redo
going to
anything,
address.
so it's
Yeah,
like-
we're not addressing off of it. We just thought it would clarify if you're at the
Okay.
intersection.
Right.
It would give that piece a name.
Good deal. Okay. Any public comment? There's none. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Travis made the motion. Joe seconded it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Down to the text amendment. City Council has final authority for approval of text amendments to the City Code of Ordinances.
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. This is a fairly minor text amendment. Right now, if you're doing construction on a property, you can get permission from the City Council to place a mobile home or a manufactured home on the property for the duration of the construction. What this would do would be to add RVs to that list so that on a construction site, for security purposes or whatever, you could bring in a recreational vehicle in addition to or instead of a mobile home onto the property. Again, each of these would be reviewed. It does have to have approval by the City Council, so they would look at the unique characteristics, and depending on what's around it, they might say yes or they might say no. This came up in this particular case to address a situation. A church has received a grant from a national mission group that what they do is bring in experienced tradesmen, carpenters, plumbers, etc. They come in, they park in RVs in the church parking lot for a period of time, and they just do a massive remodeling on a church, and then they leave town. Under our current ordinances, that's not actually allowed because the RVs weren't mentioned in this particular part of the ordinance. So again, this would add RVs to that list. City Council has to conduct a public hearing. We will notify properties within 200 feet, similar to a rezoning case, so that they can speak to it. Council could also place limits. In the case of this church, as the example, I think they plan to have 8 or 10 RVs on the church parking lot, which may be okay for a church setting. But if you wanted to do this at your house while you're remodeling your house, we sometimes get this request, say after a fire, and I can't live in the house while I'm remodeling from the fire, maybe putting an RV in the driveway. But you, in a situation like that, you might not want 6 or 8 RVs parked at a house, and so council could limit that to maybe 1. There would be a fee established for this, similar to what's already in place, and it would have to comply with any existing zoning regulations, et cetera. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yes. Any questions? No, sir.
What's the purpose of the fee?
It's just a small fee, but basically for the goal that city council has set is to have cost recovery in our fees, and because there are newspaper notices required to be published, we have to send out letters to all the surrounding property owners. It's a cost recoupment.
Okay.
So this is going to be done on every single case?
Yes, well, I mean, we haven't seen these. This is the first we've seen in a while, but yes, it would require city council approval for each and every one.
We need to make a motion.
I mean, that's up to you all. If you think that's too onerous, there could be a different.
It seems like it's onerous on them, on council. It just seems like they have bigger things to do than worry about who's putting a mobile
Seems like they
home
would
in an
just give
RV.
you the approval to do it.
They could give it to you all, like with conditional uses, or they could just give it to staff.
Right.
I'd prefer to see it
gonna
just
be
go to
that many.
staff.
Yeah.
Now,
Can we say
I
that?
think you need to be able
Or does it matter?
You,
I
no,
think
I
staff
mean, you
needs to be
could,
able to
you could
approve it.
recommend changing this where they don't require city council approval.
Seems like a lot of work for both the applicant and the city council. I mean, it just seems like.
For a very temporary thing.
I would
Yeah,
say
it's a lot of
our
work.
concern would be, the reason it would go to city council or perhaps you all is that there's that judgment call of what is the
I don't think
impact
it's
on
gonna-
surrounding neighbors. So typically, when you devolve those decisions to staff, it's where there's very strict criteria that we can judge. You know, we like looking at a checklist, do you meet them or not?
Right.
If there's a discretionary, is this appropriate or not, we like that to be done by you
Yeah,
all as
because
the
you know,
council.
you're gonna have some areas that are gonna have restrictions. The neighborhood's gonna have a restriction against it, that it
I
can't.
don't think we're gonna have this
Yeah.
many,
I
there
don't
there aren't
think
gonna
we
be
are
that many occurrences where someone's requesting this in the first.
So what do y'all
It
wanna-
happens when a church burns or remodeled or something. There's an organization called the Texas Baptist Men, and they're retired contractors, and they swarm on it and fix it and get gone.
Yep.
You know, and
My opinion is if we can do it, and if you all agree, or most of you agree, my opinion would be leave council out of it. They've got bigger fish to fry. Let's keep it between the planning commission and the planning department.
I don't even
Look
think.
at Harry
I
smiling.
don't think we need to deal with it.
We just think you should deal with it yourself.
Honestly, I don't see where we need to deal with it. I mean, I would say leave it up to planning, and then if planning
staff.
has.
I'm fine with that
To
too, but
staff.
I don't think that's something
Yeah, if
council
staff has
needs
a
to be
problem
messing
with it, then they could take it to council, but if not, you know, if it's something fairly cut and dried, I'd like to see them have the ability to make that decision and
It
cut out
could-
some of the red
So,
tape.
yeah, it could be staff approval, but if staff denies, they could have the ability to appeal it
appeal,
Right.
to
sure.
either you or
there you go.
council.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's,
Right, that sounds
that's
good.
the way you want it stated.
Okay, so you wanna make, do we need to make a motion?
Yes, and I guess the
council
question we
must
would
have
have is if that's the
Really,
direction
guys?
you're going,
No.
would that appeal go to you all or straight to council? Or,
I'd let it come to us.
Yeah, the council doesn't need to mess with that. That's,
Okay, so someone wanna make a motion?
I don't know how to make it, but I'll make it.
Joe's gonna make it. that
We
you're-
we said a lot. How are we gonna make this? Yikes.
You're
How do I
gonna-
make this, John?
So I'll make the motion to approve
You
the
make it.
stipulation that staff has the ability to approve the request. And if staff chooses to deny, then the applicant can appeal to the planning commission.
I'll second that if that's the way you want it worded, John.
Okay, wait.
Well, I think that's okay. Let me ask one question, since we've had this come up on some other issues. We recently expanded the appeal possibility for a neighbor. So let's say
Yeah.
staff approves it.
I was gonna
can the
say, we gotta
neighbor
have it both ways.
Appeal it as well, not just the
I would say
applicant.
so.
Or the city council, or we have to have the ability to let the city council review this if there's an uproar.
Or us.
One way or the other, yeah,
Or us.
yes.
Okay, so.
So it doesn't
It
have
it
to be
can
Now
be
we're back
appealed-
to
It
us.
can be appealed as far as the city council, but
Yeah, so we say if any appeal, it doesn't need to be the applicant's appeal, it could be.
We can mirror the language than the other part
yeah,
of the
if there's
ordinance
any
where
type of
it's
appeal,
staff,
then it would
the
come
applicant,
to
or
Right.
an
planning
interested citizen.
commission, and if we fail to resolve it, they can appeal to the city council.
So we're gonna treat it like the STRs.
Let's don't. Okay, so we've got a motion by Ryan.
I'll second that.
Travis seconded it. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, so there you go, John. All right, you can go ahead and do your director's
And I
report?
actually don't have anything for you today for the director's report.
Wonderful. So the next regular meeting of the Planning Commission is tentatively scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. on Monday, January, is that right? January 22nd? Or did we
Yes.
change that one, or was it November and December we changed?
November, December.
Okay, January 22nd. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So made.
Mark made the motion.
Aye.
Joe seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
If